Okay, this is the final assembly. Frankly, if some of these stakes, these adjustable stakes, they did not grip very well, so there was about 3 of the 6 that I think with any downward force would collapse. Or they're not catching as I think they're designed or intended to be, but so there it is. This is the base that goes into the ground. So we are going to try and attempt to put that onto a plant. Okay, we can see here on the base that these stake attachments are roughly 6 inches below the terminal portion of the stakes themselves. So their bamboo holder where it attaches there, and bless it, width is, I don't know, 6 and some inches. I'm going to try to put this on this plant. It's a regular household plant. I won't go too far as to destroy it, but we're going to see what happens. So we'd have to take this up and over. You can see, well, frankly, in its assembled position, there's no way to get in here to do this. It's catching on everything. So I think you're going to be restricted to very small plants or plants that you've just germinated prior to installation of this, because if they hit this plant here, it's not going to work out very well for you. And this plant is only, look at it, 9 inches across by 11 inches roughly. So it's not a very sizable plant, but I cannot put on this plant cage. So there's that. Okay, I've placed aluminum foil, as you can see, on top of this 3.5 gallon bucket. The opening has been cut open so you'll be able to see on the inside, and there are bricks, as you can see, just to weight the thing down so it stops from toppling over. I did the aluminum foil across the tops because that will reflect what would be necessary to achieve maximum adjustability with this product, because of these base rings being in fact as low as they are, or these attachment points being lower than the upper portion. As you can see here, basically you're only at a horizontal opening or 90 degrees to perpendicular or vertical. So I'm going to gently put this in here. I'm not sure if this foil is going to work, but we're going to try it. So I'm going to stop the camera and we'll restart here in a second. Okay, as you can see, the attempt with the foil failed, so I had to use some just wood dowels to support this base of this trellis. Clearly it's elevated above the edge of the bucket here. But more importantly, I want to look inside. You can see these spikes coming in here, and this is with proper installation. If you can imagine that previous plant that I'd used, those garden spikes, they have several effects. First and foremost is when they're first put in, is you will tear the roots, and that can lead to different diseases that are introduced. The roots will mold, they can become infected, and that can go into the rest of the plant. The other problem with this is that as the wind blows, if the wind is blowing the plant with the foliage on it and it's moving this around, that will undoubtedly cause wattling. And when these spikes are moving around, that's going to move the dirt back and forth, which causes what's created as what's called a dry pocket, and it will basically kill that. And the problem is that these spikes are in fact so close to the center root mass that damage to the root mass is inevitable. So that's a problem there. Okay, we're going to assemble my bucket trellis. As you can see, it's a flat collar generally flat. It's got holders for some unique, what I call swing arm attachments. So let's go ahead and show how those are done. I have plenty of room to manipulate the screws and the bolts. And that's attached. So I'm going to pause it right now, go ahead and put the other three on. Okay, that's the completed base ring with the attachments for the bamboo or wood dowels, whatever. So we're going to show its insertion upon the bucket, which again is weighted with, just have bricks in there so we can keep it from toppling over. But essentially you could slide this around and it's on. So there it is, assembled. You can see down in here there's not anything protruding down. There's nothing to damage roots. It's elevated, it's off. The design is intended to be universal, so it's not specific to any specific size, but this will fit on almost all 3.5, 5 gallon, and 7 gallon buckets, which are available worldwide, which clearly the bucket would carry your soil and your plant. So I also want to show you this portion here. These swing arms were designed specifically so as you could loosen them. You can see it's fallen to the upright position, or I can actually rotate this downward. Now I'm facing down. What that allows me to do is, with the handle that comes attached on the bucket, is at this point I can hang it up on an awning or off of a tree if I wanted to, but I can hang that from the handle and use the stakes or the swing arms with bamboo or wood dowel protruding down, and I can allow my plants to grow naturally using nature's capillary action to draw moisture nutrients up from the soil into the plant. And as the fruits or vegetables, tomatoes for instance, start to grow and they swell, they get heavy, your bamboo or your wood dowels, you can have garden string or garden netting, and it'll support those and keep them from falling off. So that's how that works. And these are also reversible. So as you can see, I've almost got a 90 degree, and there will be a little bit of adjustment manufacturing to ensure that 90 degree vertical. But I could reverse this. I'm going to show that real quick. Okay, I've just reversed that swing arm that holds the bamboo. As you can see now, as opposed to these that are facing outwards, this is facing inwards. I can take a 7/16 inch piece of bamboo and simply insert it, apply a little pressure, and it's in. We're done. So if I can show you the range, you can see how it's actually folded over itself. I can adjust it to this portion vertically. I am going to go ahead and loosen it one more time and reverse it so you can see how it would point down. Okay, now I've reoriented the swing arm to a closer to vertical position. Unfortunately, I'm hitting the ground here, so that's a little long, but you can see the idea. And now if this is hanging upwards, we would apply garden netting or some type of string. We could wrap that around, we could tie the plant off. The plant is elevated off the ground. There's no critters, insects, mice, anything to come in and damage it. Allows excellent ventilation. Now, if you do not have a 7/16 dowel and you got just a regular piece of bamboo, on the top of this, you can see a little hole. And that hole is designed so you can put in a small wood screw. So if you have a staking device bamboo or whatnot that's a little smaller, that doesn't fit this tightly, you simply put a wood screw in here, and on the inside obviously it's going to press into that wood and it'll lock it in, and that would be required to do that on a inverted hold such as I'm showing here. So there's the idea. Put it back down flat, I pushed it up. Then on this front portion, with these slotted flanges, they do have a definite purpose. Some people have plants, as example, like a bonsai tree, that will have a tendency to grow vertical. And for like example, for a bonsai tree, you would take the branches as they're coming off and you could tie them down, and that's what they do. Is the science and the art behind it is you'd actually tie those and pull those branches back down so you could change the way that branch is growing. And that's the purpose of this slotted flange on here. Secondary to that, if I put on something as simple as a zip tie, a small bungee, it really doesn't matter. All we're doing is applying a pressure that will help deform this bottom piece in here, so that if we can reduce the circumference of this bottom ring, this bottom outer ring, to any portion smaller than the maximum width of the rim, then this won't come off regardless of how strong the wind is. So that is a purposeful design, and I'm going to show the slotted flange here, how that would work here in a moment, and we'll go ahead and put some more of these things together. Okay, here's the now I've placed upon all the wood dowels. See how those protrude up in the air, and again I'm coming down low, and there is nothing interfering with the root mass. Another thing I'd like to point out is the exaggeration of this kind of awning, or this was intentional. This serves a purpose that when the wind blows or you have sun and the plant's still immature, clearly the UV and the sun will heat up the soil and increase evaporation of the moisture from your garden material, from your bucket, and from the soil. Simply by increasing this width, it does provide a little bit additional shade, and it also will help reduce windborne erosion. It still allows ventilation, which is important because you don't want to get any mold or algae and any kind of rot, but it will slow that down. Still allows the exchange of air and moisture to balance everything out, but very important. Okay, I went ahead and elevated this bucket, placed it simply on another one. But now you can see the inversion possibilities that my swing arm attachments on the bucket trellis allow. This is going down. You can see it's just a couple inches from the ground. So that's how you would invert those, and I did two of them. On the one on the back side, I flipped our swing arm, again, just turned it 180 degrees, and you can see it basically goes to a 90-degree horizontal if you wanted that. It just allows maximum configuration for the customer, whether they have a lot of space or not, regardless of disability. Very easy to use, and here's still a stake just in the regular vertical orientation. So those are major differences in the way it allows you to grow a plant and support it. Just the option to be able to hang this from an awning or a ceiling that's getting adequate sunlight, and to allow your tomatoes or your strawberries, what have you, to spill out and be supported by either garden netting or, again, string. Okay, I've taken this plant cage and moved the staking to the maximum horizontal position. See, it's flat, which does cause the middle portion to raise up. That'll create some instability because it is elevated, but the horizontal is the maximum that can be achieved with this, generally flat, 90-degree across. It's not a realistic option, because if you do have your soil, in order to achieve this, your soil would have to be level. And with this base collar on the penetrating into that soil in order to get these arms out here in a horizontal fashion. When you went to water that, the water invariably is going to spill over the side. It's not a practical application. So realistically, it needs to be down lower end of the bucket, which again reduces the accommodations that you can make with these arms. Okay, I've readjusted the arms once again, and it's not unreasonable that a gardener in a container wants to have the soil 1 to 2 inches below the rim of their container. So if I put this in here, you can see these arms being low are going to hit the walls and limit the arc that the gardener can do. Also want to point out on the stakes again, I haven't even touched these, but I've got 1, 2 that have already collapsed. I don't know. They don't seem to have a whole lot of tension to hold them, but so that's another issue. Okay, here I've got a bucket. I've got some soil in here, as you can see, approximately 1 inch below the rim. Again, that's to prevent water from spilling out. And I'll put the plant cage in. Okay, so that's down there nice and tight. You see how it sits in there. One concern I just realized is that if you do push it down closely, that parts of this trellis can act as a dome and trap humidity and moisture, again, which we do know leads to mold and different problematic infections that can occur in there. You get different mold and algae growing on the inside of that. So if it were up a little bit, that would allow the air to clear out. But then of course it's going to make it more unstable. So we'll leave it there. Okay, I've readjusted the poles to their outermost position relative to soil being 1 inch below the rim of this bucket. As you can see, they're probably at a 40-degree deflection. I did notice that it does have a tendency, oh, there it goes. So, yeah, that's a problem. Okay, so put it back in there. But again, this is the maximum deflection that you have here. Now, if we wanted to, we could try to see what we can get this direction, and that is its limitation. It's all the way over. I can't do it anymore. It's hitting the actual ring here. So that's the maximum angle against itself, and at approximately 1 inch, that's the maximum opening you have. Again, as you can see, mine can be rotated from that horizontal position into a vertical position on the side, which is key for hanging. This product cannot allow, will not allow, any way to hang a plant off of any elevated ceiling, awning, what have you. There's no way to hang this, use this product and hang it so the plant comes down and can grow naturally, but allowing more space. So, and here's the bucket trellis, and this is obviously on the soil. So again, maintain that same 1 inch soil below the lip or rim of the bucket. And like I said, it fits on. These are all oriented upwards. Again, easy adjustment. You have the shading that is possible because of this awning. It's almost built in here. And I'm going to show you, grab our plant. We have a plant in here now. And if this was a bonsai tree, then what the gardener can do is simply bend this over, and with string, which is common what they use, hook it onto any one of these flanges and tie it on here. Now, if that was a real plant, as that would continue to grow, it would grow outward horizontally. It's trying to grow vertically, but it can't because it's being arrested by a piece of string that's tied onto one of these flanges and tie it onto the branch up here. So that's the purpose of having the horizontal flange, as I pointed out earlier. Okay, for purposes of illustrating how that works, you can see I've tied an exaggerated piece of rope. It's actually parachute cord. You can see I tied it onto that slotted flange. And if I were to tie it off to here, now you can see that plant, obviously I'd cut this over here. But if this were fishing line or string or what have you, you get the idea. And that way you can tie these branches horizontally. Now, clearly with the plant cage, you could see from the previous video, there is nowhere to tie anything down. And again, you have the limited range on horizontal and vertical adjustment. And there's a stake that fell out. I didn't pull that out. It just popped out. So that is what it is. And again, my swing arm holders allow any wood dowel or bamboo or even a metal rod, as long as it's 7/16 of an inch in diameter or less. They will fit in here. And again, with one that's a little bit looser, if you had one that was half that size, naturally it's going to want to fall out. But again, you could put a screw in through this, into the neck. It'd penetrate what you have and create either a piercing or a contact friction. And would hold that. So as you rotated these arms downward, if you wanted to hang this up, as you rotate those down, that screw will hold in a smaller diameter bamboo or wood dowel. Oh, another thing I forgot to point out earlier is you can see on the bottom of these swing arm holders here, they are open, they're vented. And again, that was something that was by design, because mold and mildew are dangerous not only to the plant, but also people if they ingest it. Causes lung disease, and there have been fatalities. So we're trying to keep anything from pooling. We don't want anybody pouring water in here and have this hold water and create rot, algae, mildew, what have you. So these are, the reason these are open on the bottom is if somebody does overwater, or, you know, the garden hose and they're just spraying in here, so it does accommodate it, allows the water to drip out. So there's that. Okay, here's the trellis. I went ahead and hung it on this so you can see how that's supposed to be hung. There's another intentional, these little grooves in here. As you can see this groove, those were put in there, obviously, one, to accommodate the bucket handle on the other side and allow a little bit of more flexibility within the structure to take out some of the rigidity. So this is what people can put on their patios and hang them up. They're protected from weather, they're off the ground. Nothing's going to get to them other than bees and insects, and can't do anything about that. Here I've went ahead and put a zip tie on here just to show you how you'd pull these two sides together. And again, if this circumference becomes smaller than this circumference here, this is not going to be, this cannot be removed. That's kind of a permanence fixture in here. And then I'll step back and you can see these wood dowels, which you could put your garden netting around or your garden tie, what have you. Those are facing down. So now, as your plant grows through capillary action, I've got an associate's in botany or biology, but the plant draws up the nutrients and the water from the soil. It comes into the plant, photosynthesis, and it'll actually, as your plants grow, you got support. Your tomatoes are off the ground and they're supported, so you will get larger fruits. So this is a good way to grow. So that is pretty much all I've got. Hopefully this is helpful.